What is going on to all of my bosses out there? If you can hear my voice, can you just give me a quick yes in the chat section so I know that you can hear me? All right, perfect. Welcome, 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 all of you wonderful human beings. Hope everyone is doing great. This is episode 6 of Social Media Boss of season 1, which is crazy because it also means that next week is episode 7 and our final episode of the season, and that's it. So I'm seeing a lot of people posting in the Facebook group. I get posting wins, posting clients, things like that. I love it when people start getting clients before the season's even over. It's amazing. Jeremy Hunt is one person I want to recognize real quick. I saw he posted he's already gotten 3 clients so far. And Robert Miller literally just said in the chat to me, he goes, I use a sales structure for an inbound SMS and it worked. I have 2 clients signing on today already. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love to see results like this as well. Hold on, Robert. Let me get a screenshot of that so I can use the testimonial. All right. So many of you have been waiting for this episode because this is the episode where I bring on our special guest, a very, very good friend of mine, one of the best people that I know, and a OG of white labeling and private labeling. Now, before I bring him on in literally 30 seconds, can you guys just let me know in the chat? I'm going to open it up publicly so we can just see here real quick. Who here is planning on using white labeling or private labeling for your agency? Let me just get an idea. Just give me a me or a yes. Okay, so yeah, I mean, many, 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 many of you as well. Some of you are going to do like a blended model where, like I saw Robert said, I'll do some of the Facebook ads, but I'll use them for other things. And that's a really important point. We're going to talk a lot about private labeling and show you guys all the key mistakes to avoid, how to set up the deal structures, how to do the whole thing today. But just remember, like I even talked about this in a previous call where like, you never have to say no to a client ever again. So even if you only do Facebook ads and the client goes, hey, can you do Yelp reputation management? You don't say, nope, don't do that. You say Yelp, and you can private label that service. There's not like you never again should you ever have to say no to a client if they ask you for other services, right? It's yes to all, right? So on that note, let me unmute and bring on our guest. I'm gonna turn him into a co-host here today. Perfect. Brett, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
There he is. Dude, it is good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man. I just got back from the gym a little bit ago, so I'm spry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody else. Nice to talk to all of you.
So Levi said, I watched this guy on YouTube. That's awesome. Brett, the comments are going to be private to me, so you won't be able to see them. But if there's anything unique, I'll certainly call it out. I'll kind of manage here today. So for everyone that doesn't know, this is Brett Knutson. He is a partner of mine. He is a very good friend of mine. We've met in the last year. Shane just said below, he goes, Shane killed it at HSS, or Brett killed it at HSS. He did. He was a speaker at the High Status Summit and just destroyed it. It was so good. People loved him. He is also the founder of an agency called Monopolize. And Brett, can you just very briefly explain what Monopolize does? Because I'm sure you'll do it better than me.
Yeah, so we primarily do large-scale influencer marketing campaigns for big brands like Nike and other like Fortune 500 companies. But then we also work with big personal brands like Grant Cardone's and Jason Capitals of the world. And we love to just help brands scale through all sorts of digital marketing.
Awesome. Yeah. And so Monopolize is a company that I've been working with for, I think it's been 9 months now. And the experience has been wonderful. And I plan on, I don't see it ever stopping. I think we just keep going up and up. In addition, Brett also started a company in Silicon Valley that he founded called Hive, which was a social media app. And that got a $20 million valuation. And Brett is he's still involved in that company as well. So a very, very talented human being who's very skilled in a lot of ways. And Brett also has a company and a service called My Agency Box. And I've told you guys some about this before. I think I talked to you guys about it in week 2, where I basically said, hey, as we move down the line in social media boss, you're going to have a few options for how to private label. You're going to have the free option and you're going to have the paid option, and they both have pros and cons. I'm going to be perfectly upfront with you guys, right? I have created a group for you guys, which we're going to set up for you guys actually probably tomorrow. That's the free group where we brought in other agency owners, existing agency owners. You'll be able to chat with them inside the Facebook group, and you guys can make a deal in that group with them. So you'll be good there. Or if you do want to eventually go with Brett's service, it is the one that I recommend. If you're going to pay for the private label, it's a small fee, but it basically cuts out the middleman. So you don't have to split 50-50 or 60-40 with an existing agency. You pay a fee to Brett's company, and then you have a menu of services that you can offer to clients, and you end up splitting it with Brett's company instead. And it's just a simpler way to do it, but they're both good, and we can certainly talk more about that if you guys have questions. But what we want to do here today is, because Brent has spent so many years, obviously, as a white label provider for dozens and dozens of agencies and people like yourself already out there, as well as someone who's been on both sides of it. I'm going to act more as host today, and I'm going to interview Brett a little bit and talk about some of the tactical stuff and the nitty gritty stuff about white labeling and private labeling that you probably won't find or hear from anyone, certainly not online. A lot of things people don't like to share and stuff. We're very open, and we're going to share all the good and the bad and the ugly and everything like that for you. So the place I want to start with, Brett, is basically, let's just reiterate or reaffirm why we want to white label. And more importantly, one stigma that I've heard people talk to me about when it comes to white labeling is it feels like cheating, and the way I try to explain to them is like, well, like Trader Joe's, right? Trader Joe's chips are not made by Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's chips are made by Frito's Lay. They make the chips, and then Trader Joe's puts their label on it, and then they sell the chips. That's private labeling, right? And I try to explain that the big boys and the big companies, they've been doing this for decades. And so if they're getting rich off it, why shouldn't the little guy?
Yeah. So I first off, I just want to start off by saying thank you, Jason, for having me. You guys are seriously so fortunate to be mentored by somebody like Jason. Not just as someone that I work with, but he's seriously one of my closest friends and one of my favorite people. And just a really, like a man of extremely high integrity, and I just absolutely love him. So thank you for having me. But with that said, I want to first kind of start off by just prefacing how I even got into white labeling anything, because I started, like you said, I started a social network called Hive. And that whole process took me about 5 or 6 years, and it took me raising millions of dollars, and it took me having this huge team. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I didn't even make that much money from it, in comparison to how easily and how scalably I've made money from white labeling. And the reason why is essentially I met somebody named Alan. I won't disclose anything further than that, but Jason and I both know Alan. And I met him a few years back, and he was making 8 figures a year, and I could never figure out what he was doing. I just knew he made a lot of money. And I ended up finding out that all he did was he brokered services. He found somebody who needed something, and he found somebody who provided that thing, and he connected the two of them, and he got a cut, right? And he did that on a very, very big scale. And his lifestyle was incredible. Like, this guy literally, like, I swear he worked like 2 to 3 hours a week, and he made more money than most people I'd ever met in my life. And so when I started Monopolize, originally I started it with the intention of trying to do everything I was doing with Hive to market Hive internally, right? I was trying to do that for other companies. And I quickly found out that, as he mentioned with Trader Joe's chips, right? It's a lot harder to become a master of making chips when you're trying to be a master of making, all these other different types of products. It's a lot easier to just partner with somebody who's already done it and is already mastered, right? They've already mastered it. They're already an expert. And you can do that over and over and over with everybody in every single different field. And now you have basically a team of experts that you don't have to employ and have the huge overhead for. And you just partner with them, and then you just facilitate, right? And it's the most mind-blowing part about it is if you can get anything done in continuity, right? So this is where it gets really, really powerful and really stupid, is if you can get a client to pay you for a service that's paid monthly, and you can work out in the referral process that you get a referral commission or an affiliate commission monthly. So now you did work one time, and you get paid for, in a lot of cases, years, every month, for that one time you did the work. And it's mind-blowing. And this really is only limited to your own mental belief in yourself, because you could do this for something that's making you $1,000 a month in profit, but you can also do it, and I do it for things that make me tens of thousands of dollars a month, right? And I did the work one time with one client, right? So there's a lot of opportunity that when you're white labeling and when you're partnering with other people and you're creating these joint ventures, and it's really only limited by your own mental capacity, your own belief in yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about, you broker a deal, let's say it's SEO services for a local business, and it's $1,500 a month, and you work out a 67-33 with the fulfillment provider. Well, that's $500 that you get in the first month, and then $500 again in the next, and it just keeps going on, so long as you maintain a relationship with that client and you retain them. And what I want everyone to realize is, so you do that work once, like Brett said, and now you got a $500 a month income stream from that one work that you did. Now, where the hell else in the world can you do work once with no overhead and no upfront investment and create a $500 a month income stream that just keeps coming every month, right? You do real estate, there's so many moving pieces. A lot of times you put money down, there's all these credit, there's so much stuff. And even then, a good real estate property might make you $100 or $200 or $300 a month for all that extra work and maintenance. This is infinitely better. And so, Brett, I think just hearing you talk just now got me re-excited about white labeling, if I wasn't enough excited already. And so, dude, let's talk about key mistakes to avoid, right? Because the majority of people here and the social media bosses, they are new to this game, right? And we want to help basically time collapse a lot of the mistakes that they would have to make on their own, and maybe we can help them avoid as they get started. So what do you think the key mistakes that most people when they get started with this are?
So I would say the biggest mistake that you can make is picking the wrong person to do the white labeled work for you, right? So Jason and I both know several other people in the industry that he and I have been clients of before, maybe, or we've seen other people be clients of, and they've made a poor choice in who they do the fulfillment work with, and it's caused some really bad things to happen for their clients. And so what you want to make sure of is that, especially as someone who's new, it can be really hard to know who's good at a certain skill because you yourself don't know anything about it, right? So like when I was starting Hive, and I had no experience, no technical background, no software engineering skills, right? I'm trying to hire now a software engineering team and like build out this team of developers, and I don't know anything. Well, that led to me wasting about $150,000, right? And spending it with people who promised the world and delivered next to nothing. And so the biggest mistake that you can make, really the only real thing that you need to look out for in this process, is just making sure that the people that you're partnering with actually are going to deliver good quality results, and are people who you've either heard testimonials from their clients, which is ideal, or you just know them well enough and you've seen them deliver over and over, or their reputation precedes them, right? So that's the biggest, most important thing that you want to look out for.
So do you have any criteria that you use to maybe quickly thin slice someone to identify if they are a provider who's going to be good and someone you can count on?
Yeah, so with Monopolize internally, we work with some of the best in the industry for several different categories. So when I started Monopolize, I didn't start it by myself. So I partnered with the founding team of Shipt, which is a grocery delivery app that some of you may be familiar with. And Shipt sold to Target for $550 million in December of 2017. And their whole team and I partnered on Monopolize together, along with several OG like vets in the space, to create what we believe is the best marketing agency on the planet. And so we basically took everything that we were doing internally for our own companies to build them to multi-8 and multi-9 figure valuations and sell to Fortune 500 companies. And we're just doing that now for other companies. So when we're vetting other people, we have media buyers who spent $100 million who are vetting, the people that we're going to be working with. We have people who have spent, $100 million on like all these different categories that are vetting and determining who makes the cut and who doesn't.
Got you. Okay, so you have experts who've been doing this a long time that they can vet for you in your
Yeah.
setting. Gotcha.
Yeah, but the if you don't have that, the best thing to do again would be to talk to a client, right? So talk to like ask to see their portfolio. Say it's design work, right? If it's design work, you want to ask to see their portfolio because you'll very quickly be able to tell if their designs suck or if they're good, right? If it's any other type of client work where you can't just see upon a first glance, ask them if you can speak to some of their previous clients, right? Or if it's a service where you can somehow see reviews or testimonials, ask to see those.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think a really important point to this as well, Brett, and this is for everyone here, please listen, is that if you seem really thirsty to these existing agencies or these providers, and you just, the first one you find who's like, yep, I'll do that deal with you. And you're like, great, I'm in. And you just sign up right away with them and you partner with them. They're going to know you're a rookie because you were so easy, right? They're also going to know that you must not have a lot of other options. Therefore, you might be easier to take advantage of, right? So simply by doing some vetting, some qualifying, hey, do you have testimonials I can look at? Can I look at your portfolio? Do you have other people I can talk to who you've worked with in the past? That's a really, really important thing to do. Dan Kennedy has this great line. He says he won't do business with someone if they can't provide at least 3 people who have done a deal with this person previously and would be willing to do another deal with that person again. He's like, if they don't have 3, they're garbage, right? So I think it's a really good test. The other way I like to think about it, and Brett and I, like, we, a lot of people in this industry, and we often have discussions about the lack of integrity amongst many, many people in this industry, and in basically every industry. It's pervasive. One idea I think about a lot is if I left this person alone with my grandma for 3 days, they're in a cabin trapped together for 3 days. And after those 3 days, I asked my grandma, what do you think about this person? If she was like, that's a solid person, I will do business with them. But if I imagine my grandma would be like, yo, don't trust that person at all, then it's probably not a good fit. And the grandma thing is really, is this a person of integrity or not? And I think that's really important for a lot of you because like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they have a few criteria they look for in the people they manage, the people they partner with, which is one, do we like and admire this person? Which seems so simple, but it's do I like them and do I admire them, right? That's one thing. The other thing they look for is a person of high integrity. And then the third thing is this person passionate about what they do, right? And I think if the person you're considering partnering with can check those 3 boxes for you, you like and admire them, they have high integrity, and they're passionate about what they do. They don't talk about design work like it's a chore, right? They're actually really excited about doing design work. That's going to be a much, much better person who's probably going to deliver a much better service.
Yeah. Okay. Can I jump in on something you said too?
Yeah.
There is one other thing that you want to look out for, which Jason touched on. So everything that I talked about is like making sure that your client doesn't get screwed over, right? But Jason mentioned making sure you don't get screwed over, which is also a good point. And so to make sure you don't get screwed over, if you're considering working with, like, say, 2 different types of people for website design, doing everything I said to make sure your client gets a great product, right? So double checking their portfolio, all that stuff first, but then also the prices they give you, right? And the delivery and the turnaround time, you want to compare those side by side because some people will, quote you way, way, way higher than they realistically should if it's a wholesale relationship, right? So if you're white labeling, they're not supposed to be giving you retail rates. You're supposed to be selling at retail to the client, and you're supposed to be getting what they would normally, charge a client. You're supposed to be getting that for way less. You're supposed to be getting that at wholesale and make the margin of difference, right? So there should be a margin of at least, 20 to 50%, depending on the product, that you can take, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Brett, I'm going to pull up the whiteboard here. Can you go over, can we draw up an example of what you're talking about so everyone can kind of see visually what you're saying? Like
yeah, so just as far as like comparing 2 different people.
Yeah, but like so this person you're partnering with, here's their retail, here's your wholesale. So here's what
Sure. So say person A says that they'll design a website, 3 to 5 page, we'll just say a standard WordPress website they'll do for $750, right? And person B says that they'll do the website for, we'll say $850. Now, assuming all else is equal, you've seen their portfolios, you've talked to their clients, and they're both very proficient. The only reason why you would pay person B is if their turnaround time was way better, right? Because that's the only other, like, if the quality of the product's the same, it would be about their turnaround time, right? And so if person A is 750, but their turnaround time is, 60 days, and person B's turnaround time is 2 weeks, it's worth the extra $100, right? Because you got to keep in mind, if you're white labeling, even though they're the ones doing the work, you're the one whose reputation's on the line for the work, right?
Yep.
And so you want to take into account things like turnaround time.
Yep. And you certainly don't want to promise a client, yep, it'll be ready in 14 days, and then it's not ready for 28 days, because there's almost nothing that is more deflating to a client relationship than
being late
and under.
Yeah. So and that's another good thing to bring up too, is say person A says 60 days and person B says 14. You're not going to tell that say you decide to work with person B, you're not going to tell the client 14 days. You're going to tell them 30. And then you're going to over deliver when that person gives you the site in 14, because you always have to look and watch out for the unexpected, right? What if person B gets sick? What if person B is, off by a little bit? Like, it's so much better to give a quote of like the turnaround time and it doesn't sound as favorable, right? Because when you're trying to close a deal, it's tempting to like push the limits of everything, right? So it's like, I'll get it to you in less than 2 weeks, and it'll be, like all these different promises. But now you have to deliver on those promises. It's much better to under promise and over deliver, right? Because even if you said 14 days, right, and they delivered in 14 days, your client now, all you did was meet their expectations. You didn't exceed them. But ironically, if you said 30 days and you got it done in 14 days, even though it's done in the same amount of time, you've now exceeded their expectations, right?
Yep. And by the way, I think the term they use for that is like activation point, where it's like a point where the client signs up with you. And when people sign up with you, they haven't officially decided they're going to stay with you. That's a separate decision that they have to make. And it often happens usually right after they sign up with you, somewhere between right after they sign up to the point where that first deliverable comes in. And if you promise 30 and you deliver in 14 on that first touch, they're going to be so thrilled. And you probably have a long-term client, which is what I think.
Who's also going to refer you more business.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So one of the best parts about white labeling is you can be strategic about how you build your business through referrals. Right? Monopolize, we have spent $0 ever on advertising our services. None. Because we don't have to. Like I have people referring me new clients, so many that I have to turn a lot of people away. Right? And the way that we do that is we over deliver, but we also treat our clients really well if they refer somebody. Right? So if somebody refers me a client, I'm not just going to say thank you. Like, they're getting a check in the mail. Right? I treat the people who refer me clients very well, because then I never have to spend money on advertising my services. Yep. And I just grow as a byproduct of being generous and treating my clients well.
Great. Okay. So I think this is pretty clear. And just to be clear on pricing, Brett, so let's say you go with person B here. They design the site for $850 because they have a faster turnaround time as well and a better reputation. Are you selling the service for $850 to the client, or are you increasing that price?
No. So I would definitely be increasing that price. And one of the best ways to work out a relationship like this is to ask person B what they usually sell that service for, retail. Right? Like if you're like, hey, what's the best rate you can get me wholesale? If I'm bringing you a bunch of clients, they say $850. It'd be like, okay, what would you normally sell that site for if it was just a client approaching you? And they might say, well, I normally sell it for $1250. Well, now you know that $1250 is where they're selling it at, and they're not you, right? They don't have the skills that you have. They haven't taken the training from Jason that you have. So now you could sell it for $1,250 up to probably what, $1,500, right? Maybe even $1,700. And so, and the thing is too, is when you have access to multiple different services that you can white label, you can also bundle and package things together. So you could take something that has a high perceived value, like say a logo design, right? Logo design is something with a very high perceived value because it's the brand's front-facing image, right? It represents the brand, it's everywhere. But you can get a really good logo designed with unlimited revisions for, $100 maybe, right? $150. And so that's something that you could bundle in with the website. Be like, and we'll give you a brand, we'll give you a brand refresh, or we'll rebrand your company. We'll give you a new logo and all this stuff, and you can bundle that in, and you can use it to increase the prices of other services that might not have as high of a profit margin.
Yep. And there's a lot of things you guys can do with that. For instance, if it's $100 for a logo, and it makes sense to you, you could throw that in as a free thing for the client when they buy the website, right? Or you can say, well, the website is $1,500, or we do a website, logo, SEO package, and that's only $2,200, right? And if you bought those separately, it would be $2,800. Like you can do things like that to increase the ticket price as well. Okay. All right, Brett. So then let's keep moving. What in your opinion are like the key? Are there any key principles we haven't talked about that you think go into making white labeling work? And if not, no is a viable.
Yeah. I think the most important thing, like I said, it's finding the right people to partner with that are going to deliver a good product in a reasonable turnaround time at a rate that you can be profitable in, right? And that's pretty much it. It's really, the thing that's great about white labeling is it's not complicated, right? Like everything else is complicated. If this was a call where I was supposed to teach you how to run Facebook ads yourself, this wouldn't be a 1-hour call. This would be like a several week long, like 100-hour masterclass type thing, like to be good, right? And that's just one thing. So it's like you can either spend thousands and thousands of hours trying to get good at all these different things like website design and Facebook ads and just all these different services, or you can just partner with somebody who's already done that work. And then you don't have, like, white labeling is not hard. I wish I could give you guys like some more comprehensive thing, but it's really like, it's not hard. It's all about relationship building, right? Relationship building, and then just treating the people that you know really well. And they'll refer you more business.
Okay, so let's do this then. We'll go a very simplified view. I'm going to clear this. Let's just draw what the flow looks like for like a social media boss who's going to be doing this, right? So let's actually, we'll do Brett, what we'll do is we'll do the steps in order, like a numbered list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll draw it after, right? So what is step one? Do you think the social media boss should go source clients first, like prospects, or should they partner with their service providers first?
You can do either. I personally think that just in order to, 1, not be rushed, 2, make sure you're making the right choice, 3, make sure that the client sees good turnaround time. It's ideal if you already have those relationships set up. Okay. But obviously, as you've seen, like there's been people who've already succeeded before this training is even over. They're already getting clients, so you can do it either way. But that's what I would do.
Do you have to be limited to just one white labeling partner, or can you have a whole kind of database?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, you can find the best people in every industry. You can have like he said, like Jason said, pretty much anything that anybody wants to have, you can say yes to, and then find somebody who will do it. And you'll be surprised at how willing people are to work with you on this. If you approach a company, you can literally Google these services, approach a company and find somebody who is ranked high in Google, right? Because they've been around a while and they must do a decent job. Reach out to them and say, hey, I have clients who would be interested in a service like yours. I understand your retail for X, Y, and Z. What type of wholesale rate could you give me if I brought you clients? And it's a fairly fast conversation to have, right? And so it doesn't need to be, you don't need to find like the end all be all one-stop shop of everything. There's not really much of that anywhere. But yeah, you can certainly work with multiple partners.
Yeah. And I think everyone here should, because if you end up relying on just one partner and they know they're your only partner, then it's fairly easy for them to squeeze you on numbers, and force you to do things because you simply have no leverage. And again, like Brett said, if you only have one, it's highly unlikely that one partner you have happens to be the absolute best at every possible thing that you could offer clients. It just doesn't exist. So I think keeping options open and having a lot of white labeling partners is good. So we're going to find partners first. And then from there, then we go, and next step would be going out and getting the clients. Right. Yep. You sign up the clients. And then once the clients come in and you sign them up, now you're going to, that's the third thing actually, Brett, I kind of want to talk about here is what does the execution look like for an agency owner who is white labeling? Like first it's a contract with the client, and then maybe is it an intake form that goes to the fulfillment provider? Like how does that work?
Exactly. So the fulfillment provider they'll already have this. If they don't have it, it's a little concerning. They will already have, like he said, like an intake form, basically some sort of a sheet that they will require that your client fill out so that they know what the heck your client wants. So if it's a website that they want designed, it'll say like, what's the domain name you want? What colors do you want to use? What logo do you have? What do you want? Like, what tabs do you want? Like, they'll have this intake form and all this different process that they'll make someone fill out first. And so you'll just have that. You'll get that, talk to your client, get that information from them, then give that intake form along with the payment, right? The wholesale payment to the fulfillment provider. And then that's it. Like it's really, really, really easy to do.
And in terms of the money, so what you guys should be doing when you make the agreement with the client is you're going to have your own contract that they sign. And I'll give you guys a very sample contract. I'll put that in the Facebook group. But frankly, the contracts are very simple. You can even find them for free online, and they are legally bound. They're good contracts. But you sign them up with the contract. And then when you take payment, you run it through your own cart, whether it's Stripe or whether it's PayPal or Venmo, whatever it is that you're going to use. And then you, as the middleman, are the one who's going to be paying the service provider or your white labeling partner, right? So, for example, let's say that client sends you, let's say the agreement is $1,500 a month, and your agreement with the service provider, let's say it's $67.33, where you get $500 and they get $1,000, right? So then you'd pay $1,000 to the service provider each month, and then you keep $500 each month from that. So that's what that looks like in terms of how the money flows. And again, just so everyone is very, very clear, the client will not know that it's not you providing the service. They will be operating under the, not illusion, but the story that you have partnered, or you are a founder in a company or an agency, or you have partners in a firm that provide XYZ service to the client. And so it is your agency providing the service, but they just don't realize. Like, think of it like this. It's almost as if you would have an employee who did the SEO or the Yelp or the PPC or the Facebook or whatever it might be, but except they're not an employee. They're simply a subcontractor, someone that you've partnered up with. And that is the fulfillment provider, the person that you have white labeled with. Is there anything you want to add?
It's a partnership. So you would just say like, let me talk to my partner. Yes. If they ask for like a quote, you just say, let me talk to my partner and get back with you.
Yep. So, and I think that's a good jumping off point, Brett, is if we can talk a little bit about deal making and getting the best price from the clients that we're talking to. So let's say that Social Media Boss engages with a prospect. The prospect is interested, and now they're like, I want to do this. This sounds really good. How much does it cost, or how does that work? How do you usually handle that conversation yourself, or how do you recommend it be handled?
So can I go to kind of step 0 too? Just mention one other thing.
Sure.
Is you guys actually have a really unique opportunity with the white labeling concept now to just start paying attention to anybody you ever meet ever and listening to what their needs are, and then figuring out how you can fill those needs, and then finding, you know what I mean? Like, you can, with this mentality, you can literally just always be having this like sense of awareness when you're talking to people of what their problems are, and if you can, you know, put together a way of solving those problems for them and then figuring it out and solving it for them. Right. And so a lot of times when I was first getting started in a lot of this stuff, I would meet somebody who was really successful, who had a really big problem. And I knew that I could, you know, I'm resourceful. I knew that I could figure out a way to solve the problem. And I just would say, like, I have someone you need to meet. I didn't know who that person was at the time, but I said that, and then I would go and figure out who they needed to meet based off the problem that they had, and then I would introduce them and solve the problem, and I would already have pre-negotiated a deal in with that person. So, so that's kind of just something you always want to keep in mind. Now, step 2 is making sure that you're getting the best deal you can get from the fulfillment side, right? Before even worrying about the client side. So whatever somebody's first offer is, say you're, you know, talking to a web developer, you want to combat what their first offer is. Almost always people, like, their first offer is not their best and final. Mm-hmm. Very rarely. Now, if you're working with a very large organization, right, like, you can't go into Walmart and negotiate the price of the toilet paper there that you're buying, right? But you can go into a mom and pop store and negotiate the price of the toilet paper, right? So same concept. If you're working with an individual human being developer or individual human being designer, like, you can negotiate those rates. Mm-hmm. So whatever they say first, don't take that as best and final, because it's not. So get the best deal that you can, and then go back to the client. And the best way to get more out of the client as far as profit for you is to bundle services, right? So, and the other thing to keep in mind too is if you're doing a good job and you know that the service that you're delivering is good, then you don't have to try and figure out what the industry average is, right? So like my agency, we don't do average work. So we don't charge average rates. We charge very high rates because we do very good work, right? So you don't have to be always competing based off of industry averages and price, because in my opinion, right, in the opinions of many people that I know and work with, competing based off price is a loser's game, because there's always somebody who has more scale, who can do it cheaper than you, who's willing to go with less profit than you. So don't try and be the cheapest. Never try and be the cheapest. That is a loser's game. Okay, so instead, seek to be the best. Right? Seek and try to be the best. Find the best person for something, right? Do the best work, have the best turnaround time, have the best customer service. Customer service is really like what's can set you apart from everybody else. And just be the best. People are happy to pay more money for better work, right? And then the last thing, which is kind of in line with that, is you got to keep in mind too that what seems like a lot of money to us as human beings is not a lot of money to a business. And so you have to separate those two things. $1,500 might sound like a lot of money to you or to me based off our like personal income. That is not a lot of money to a business. That is small potatoes to a business. A business could lose $1,500. A decent business could lose $1,500 and not notice. So you have to keep that in mind too when you're talking to these businesses, that the rates that you're charging them, it might make you nervous to say, right? When they're like, how much does it cost? You're like, $1,500, right? And like makes you uncomfortable. That is nothing to a business, mm-hmm. right? So just realize that, have that level of certainty, that level of confidence in you. And soon you'll find yourself being able to say it's $10,000 and not flinch, right? It's $20,000.
Yep.
Right. So that's the other important thing. The mindset piece is important if you want to really, really go crazy and scale. Yeah. And you can.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this, guys, and it's this whole, like, if you say the price and you feel weird about it, or you think, or you feel that it's expensive, or too much or overpriced or whatever, that's going to transfer over to the person who's hearing what you say. And they're going to feel that way. And of course, they feel that way. They're probably not going to say yes and buy, right? And one good exercise that I'm dead serious about, it's actually a fun exercise you can do. You go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and then you say to the mirror, you go, how much does it cost? As if someone was asking you that. And then you say your price in the mirror. So you go, how much does it cost? It's $2,000 a month. And you keep practicing it until you can say it's $2,000 a month the same way that you would say, I'll have a quarter pounder with cheese, right? That same energy, that same tonality, as if they're both no big deal, because neither of them are a big deal. It's actually a really good exercise to do. Another good exercise you can do is you do the same thing, but when you answer how much does it cost, you keep increasing the price. And you find the number where you start to get uncomfortable, or you start to laugh, or you start to feel some giddiness or some tension inside. And that'll let you know that's your current boiling point or your sticking point. And you need to practice at that point until you get comfortable at it. Like, you need to be able to say, when someone goes, how much does it cost? You need to be able to say, it's 100K to start, and then it's 14K a month after that, right? Like 100 grand, like it's nothing. Or it's $1 million, like it's nothing. Like I have no problem saying this. I pay Brett almost $33,000 a month to him and his company, right? But the same way that like when me and Brett talked about those numbers, it was nothing. It's as if we were talking about any number, right? Because that's just how it is, right? That's just how business is. And if you can give that same vibe and that same energy to the client when they ask you how much does it cost, I don't want to give my money to someone who thinks 32 grand a month is a lot of money, because I'm concerned about that person. What will they do with the money? Oh, they hit a jackpot, right? But if it's no big deal to them, then I'm like, oh, it's just business as usual, right? So I think that's really important. The other thing, Brett, is me and you actually had an experience in the last couple of weeks where we were negotiating with someone. And full disclosure, I fucked it up myself, I believe. And Brett came in and he helped a lot with it. And actually learned a lesson from you, Brett, about deal making and negotiating that I think would be really useful to share with everyone here. And it was the difference between explaining the value, I think, versus justifying the value, as you kind of described it. Can you kind of talk about that mentality and how you go about doing that?
Yeah. So the important thing to understand is if somebody ever comes back at your price and tries to lowball you or negotiate with you, they're not trying to negotiate with you because they think your price is too high. They're trying to negotiate with you because they don't see the value, right? And so it's important to, you may have heard like a phrase like value stacking. It's important to do a really thorough job before you ever even say the price in the first place, right? Because the best way to handle objections is to not get any, because you handle them in advance. But to stack the value up in the first place before you present the price, and make the value so apparent that by the time you say the price seems low, right? And you can do that by comparing yourselves to other agencies or, other people and other prices. You can do that based off of what you're going to deliver and just focus on what you deliver. But that's a really, really important thing to keep in mind too, is that you're stacking that value for them. And that's why I'm a huge fan of bundling. I know I've talked about this already on this call, but the way that you want to think about it is if somebody is already talking to you about a website, as an example, you can start to ask them questions, right? So you're not assuming anything. You're learning about them based off what they tell you. You ask them questions about what they need, and then you're able to put together a package for them. And the package, even though it might be discounted based off of what it would be if they bought it individually, is way more than they were ever planning on buying, right? And so now you've increased your profit on the deal as a whole. And depending on what the services are that you're selling them, you may have increased your monthly recurring revenue too, right? Because if you sell a website, now you have hosting costs, right? They have to keep up the website and keep it running. So that's a monthly recurring profit for you. If you're selling them on advertising, now you have the monthly recurring management costs, right? So there's a lot of opportunity in bundling. But yeah, ultimately it's just stacking the value and staying at what you said. Because a lot of people will also just see if they can negotiate with you just to see, right? And if you say no, they're still already in. Like they just want to see. And so you got to keep that in mind.
So Brett, let's say you're talking to a client and it's the service that they need, and your quote is it's going to be $2,000 a month. And they wait 2 days and then they come back to you and they say, I looked this over. I want to do this. I'm really, really excited. but I just can't do it for any more than $1,300 a month, right? What is your response to that? Obviously, without knowing all the details, like what's your first thinking that you go into crafting your response? What are you trying to gather up in your response to share back with them?
So this is probably the most valuable thing I'll be sharing on this call. I don't think of expenses in my business as something that costs me anything. I always ask, what's the return on my investment? And if a business owner is coming to you wanting a cheaper price, all they're considering is the cost, the bottom line, the number. And so it's up to you to sell them on the return on their investment, right? So you always want to start, you never want to disagree with them. So you want to start by saying, Mr. Jones, I completely understand. Like $2,000 a month is a lot of money. And I understand that you have a lot of things you have to pay for in your business. But the reason why we charge $2,000 a month is because this service is going to generate your business so much more than that $2,000 a month that you're paying, right? And you get them focused on the return and not the expense, right? And obviously it depends on what the service is, how deep you go into that, and that's why I can't go any further, but you get the idea.
Yep, totally. So good, man. Okay, so what I want to do now is I just want to draw for everyone really quickly what I believe your options kind of look like in terms of your decision of how to white label or who you're going to private label with. So I want to go over that real quick, and then I want to take questions from everyone here for Brett so we can jump into those. So I'll draw this really quick as you guys kind of drop your questions in there. So the way I kind of think about it is like you kind of have three options that you can make this work. And the first one would be, of course, to like do it with me and Brett, right? So Brett, again, it's called my agency box. And if you guys were to go online and you find it somewhere on Google or something, you might see a price. That's not the price that Brett and I are going to be able to arrange for you. We're basically going to get it to you at wholesale, but we'll talk about that basically once we finish Social Media Boss for all of you guys who want to do that, because that's not the point of this call here. But that is one option, and obviously it has my stamp of all stamps of approval. All right, I think that's pretty obvious here. The other option, of course, is you can do the partner with the existing agencies in the Facebook group that we're going to put together for you guys. So you can do that there. The big issue, of course, there is just making sure that the person you're partnering with, again, fits those criteria. Do you like and admire them? Are they a person of high integrity? And are they passionate about what they do? Do they deliver great results for their clients? And we've done our best to filter the agencies that are going to be in that group with you to only be those people, but we're not perfect. And it's the internet. There's always sometimes, like random stuff you can't see, but that is second option. And then third option, of course, which is totally fine, is you just Google your way, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Going on Google and finding all these, like there's so many agencies already out there. And like Brett said, like imagine you're an agency and you're doing all this stuff. You got SEO and Facebook and PPC, and you've got pediatricians and dermatologists and medical spas and restaurants and gyms. You got all these clients and all these services and all this stuff. And someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I have quite a few clients who are looking for services I think you guys provide. I'd love to just send the clients to you. Is that something we can discuss? Right. And now you as the agency are like, holy crap, someone's coming to me. They don't want anything. They have clients ready to go. I'm going to get money from this. This is great. I would love to talk to this person. And you find out that they sell at $1,000 a month for services. And because you're better at selling than they are, you raise that up to $1,500 a month. And then you guys split it. Maybe you take the entire margin of profit that you created, the 500, and they get the 1,000, or whatever it is, the deal that you guys settle on. And that's a totally fine way to do this as well. And if you feel like you're good at reading people and making sure this person is a winner and not a loser, then that is totally an option to go. So I just want you guys to visually see that you do have a lot of options here in how you want to navigate this. Now, like I said, what I want to do is I want to go to some questions here for Brett. So Brett, I'm going to check the chat. Brett, I'll just read them off to you, and we'll get going here. So first question.
I got one question here too. I can read.
Okay, go for it.
Privately. They said, how do you handle client objections when you're not the one fulfilling the service if they ask? So you would basically say, say they ask a question that is, something that only a software engineer would know, like, a web developer. You would say, I can talk to my partner and get back to you on that. Assuming their answer is, and then whatever they're looking for, would you be ready to move forward? Like, would you be ready to get started today? Right. So you get that soft micro commitment from them. So that way they're not just constantly barraging you with stuff. And if they keep asking you questions and more objections, it's the same exact answer. Like, okay, so you need this, this, and this. I'll go talk to my partner about those things, assuming that the answers to these things is X, Y, Z. Would you be ready to get started today? Right.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So Blake said here, he said, should we be partnering with smaller service providers, or is it better to partner with larger known, better known service providers?
That depends, because with smaller service providers, like I said, there might be more flexibility on cost because they're willing to be flexible, not necessarily because their costs are lower. Usually the larger companies will have scale, right? So they'll be able to provide the services at a lower rate, but they might not be willing to negotiate to that rate. So it depends. I know that's not the answer you were looking for, but that's the honest answer.
Next question comes from Phoenix, and Phoenix said, what if the client wants to talk with the provider directly? Basically, the client shouldn't know you're not the one doing the work, right?
If the client wants to talk to the provider directly,
so,
if they want to talk to the provider, in a lot of cases they can, and it's a non-issue. That's more so up to you if you want to be the sole line of communication or not. You can actually negotiate the deal to be the complete opposite, where instead of the client paying you and you taking the margin and then you giving the wholesale rate to the supplier, you can instead negotiate with the supplier that you bring them a client and they give you a commission. So it doesn't really matter what, it's whatever works best for you, whatever you're the most comfortable with. You can do both. I do both.
Yep. I do both as well. And the key thing, of course, is making sure that the person you're doing the business with, you trust, and they're someone you can rely on. They're not someone who's just going to disappear and take your money. Okay. Rochelle said, options for performance-based pay. Is this the best strategy long-term for most profit in my pocket as a revenue stream? How would I do this if certain services like logo design don't have any quantifiable ROI? Does that make sense, Brett?
Performance-based pay, meaning like they want to pay you after the fact, I would stay away from that. That, in my opinion, like working for somebody for free, once somebody's gotten something for free, they're always going to want it to be free. Maybe you have something to say on that, Jason. I'm not a big fan of the free trial concept for media buying. Like I'm just not a fan of any of that stuff. In my opinion, if somebody's doing that, it just means that they lack confidence in themselves and their ability to just close them up front. It's not necessary. I don't care what anybody says. Like if somebody's like, there's a lot of people that recommend that you do like the free trial. I could not disagree with that more. I don't think it's necessary.
In my experience, I think if someone is newer, that you have to be able to deliver a result first.
Yeah. If you were the one doing the Facebook ads, then yeah, you should be doing a free trial.
Yeah,
that's different.
I'm saying that a lot of times it's actually more expensive to convince someone that you can get them a result instead of just getting them the result first, right? And what I mean by that is if you want to do lead gen, then instead of you going through all the shuffle of a sales call and funnel and stuff, sometimes it's easier and less expensive to just start sending them leads. You don't do a free trial. You just start sending them leads and you get them hooked on it. And then you follow up and say, hey, do you want me to keep doing that? And now you've already proven the service works. And now it's a very easy transition to the sale. So that's not a free trial. It's actually better. And it's a proven strategy. So
I'm getting a bunch of questions. Can I read some?
Yes, sure, man.
Does your agency or any agency you recommend for us specialize in Instagram follower growth? That is what we do for Jason and almost everybody else in that field. So we do that better than anybody else. The answer is yes.
And I will affirm that very much so.
You have some in yours?
Yes. So next one comes from Dan. He said, "Hey Brett, if I'm finding and deciding on our own white label partner, would you look for local businesses who offer the service, or is location irrelevant?"
Location's irrelevant. If what matters is that you're comfortable and confident more than, and like certain in what you can do more than anything else. If you feel better and you feel like you can present better in person and being local like helps you do that, then that's fine, but it's certainly not necessary. If you have an in, right? Because warm connections and warm networks are the best way to get started. So if you want to get started locally because you know somebody, right? You know a local dentist or you know a local whoever that needs help, then absolutely start local, just because starting with warm networks is the best way to start, right? But it's location doesn't matter. Like I don't think hardly anybody, any of my clients are in Vegas where I am.
Yep. Cool. All right. Next one comes from Michael. He said, "Brett, how do you prevent poaching?"
Maybe more context.
I assume he means, so I partner with a provider. We get a client, and then the client and the provider go behind my back and cut me
out. So you would either have an agreement, like a legally binding agreement in place that you would get a commission if you were sending them a referral, or you would have that's a similar agreement in place for you sending them clients, and any sort of boilerplate standard agreement is going to say like a non-compete, like you can't take my clients, right?
Yep. And then the other part, of course, goes with the your target selection of who you actually decide to work with. If you pick high integrity people to work with, then poaching isn't, it's a non-thought. It's irrelevant. Okay, got a few more here. There's a location one. Okay, Ahmed said, I mean, I can answer this one, but Brett, I'd love to hear your take on it. He said, "If I'm going back and forth DMing on Instagram with a prospect, should I reply immediately or should I wait a few hours before sending them a reply? I don't want to appear needy."
I have my answer to that, but I would argue, the best in the world at Instagram DM chat closing. So I'm going to leave it to you.
Okay. Yeah. Ahmed, the answer is no, you reply right away. This isn't like picking up girls at a bar where you wait. Yeah. This is Instagram. And especially just think about this. Think about the ADD people have on Instagram and the millions of options that are competing for their attention on Instagram. So if you get someone replying on Instagram and they're like active in that moment, you may lose them 2 minutes from now to a dancing cat, right? So I think it's just, let's just reply right away and just get it going. A lot of times some of my best closes and stuff have come where I'm DMing with someone, I'm not waiting, I'm applying right away. And then I'm just like, yo, you want to hop on like a quick 2-minute call and just talk about this? And they're like, yeah, sure. We get on the phone. It wasn't scheduled. There was no Calendly. We just hop on the phone real quick and deals are made. So that's my recommendation with that.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, I would say too, that usually if you're in the middle of talking to them, they're in the middle of sitting in their own pain. Yeah. And so if you leave them for a few hours, then they might, like you said, go find a cat video to relieve the pain instead of, bringing you on to help them with the pain.
Right. Which also, by the way, would make you a dick, right? Because if they're in pain because they don't have leads or something, not you, Brett, right? The person, right? If they're in pain because they have poor lead flow, they don't have enough clients coming in the door or whatever it might be, and then they go and they numb that pain with dancing cat video, that is not a lasting solution. That problem of lead flow is still going to be there tomorrow. But if you instead woke up and handled them in that moment and then made a deal with them to get them the leads they want tomorrow, they might still have that pain because it takes a little time for the work, the leads to flow in. But now they've actually relieved the pain with a viable solution, not an unviable solution like a dancing cat, right? So, really good point. Okay, a few more. Fatos said, "Is my agency box, is it a fixed fee a month or is it a percentage per client?"
So as far as the fulfillment goes, we just take a wholesale flat rate and we have suggested retail rates that are usually 2 times what we charge to do the fulfillment for most things.
Yeah. So like, let's say it's SEO. I don't know the exact numbers in the menu. I haven't looked at it, but like, let's say it was SEO and their suggested wholesale or their wholesale flat rate was 500 a month, and then suggested would be 1,000. But you could certainly sell it for 12 or 1,500 or 1,800. And again, all that margin of profit, however high or low you go, is yours. So that's how it works there. Okay. AB, a good question. He said, how would you position your social media profiles, your bios, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., if you're white labeling tons of services in different niches, or do you think you should be in one specific niche?
I think that it helps to start in a specific niche because you might be able to get more clients that way by leveraging specific case studies that are niche specific to a future client. But at some point, I think that everyone's goal should just be to operate based off referrals and figure out how you can put some sort of a commission in, whether it's 20% of profit or whatever, where you're making your clients aware of that. Hey, especially since now they're happy, right? They got the result they wanted. You're helping them with their business in whatever way, to say, hey, if they say thank you, say, absolutely glad I could help. Just so you know, one of the most helpful things you can do for me would be to just, if there's anybody else that's struggling with this type of stuff in any industry, just let me know. And if we end up working with them, we take really, really good care of the people that refer us business, and we'll, definitely be sending you thank you checks in the mail, something like that.
Awesome. Okay. And guys, I just want to point out, I see a lot of questions coming in here specifically about my agency box. Louise, I see you. Dan, I see you as well. So what I'll do is I'll just, at the end of this call, I will give you guys very clear instructions if you're like, you want to work with Brett right away, of how I'll connect you guys basically. So I'll handle that. Couple more questions before we wrap up here. So Leo, he said, so are we going to be totally transparent with the client, telling them that there is a service provider and it's not us providing the service? Leo, as Brett said before, it's not like you don't do it, they do it. It's you've partnered with an agency. And so it's not like someone else provides a service and you don't. It's me and my partners provide the service together. So it's just think of it from that frame of mind. Okay, Daniel said, are there any niches or industries, Brett, that we should avoid going into, or ones that you think are really good right
now? Anything that where the profit margin is really low for the business is something to stay away from. But let me give you a perfect example of an industry that I used to tell people not to get into, and I was wrong. I used to tell people, don't get into the restaurant industry because it's really low profit margin. And it is, by the way, really low profit margin. Restaurant owners are a nightmare to get a hold of and talk to because they're super busy and they're usually owned by their business. But the reality is, I recently found an agency that works only with restaurants. They do a really good job with restaurants, and they use SMS marketing, right? Text message marketing. And they do a great job closing restaurants, crushing it for restaurants, and charging restaurants a ton of money. So ultimately, it all goes back to your ability to find somebody who can provide a good service. And I'm not recommending going into restaurants, by the way. But it's just the purpose of what I'm saying is that any niche will work for you. I'm not really a big fan of better or worse niches. And I also don't serve only one niche. Monopolize. We do campaigns for shoes. We do campaigns for makeup. We do campaigns for clothes, all sorts of different types that we do. And we do campaigns for personal brands.
Awesome. Okay. So I think this is one of the last ones. Kamal said, say if I was closing a client or upselling the current client using Brett's paid service, could I use your IG account for proof? So I think he's saying if I partner with my agency box or with Brett, then am I able to say these are my partners and then point to a website, or how does that work, Brett?
Yeah, you could. You won't have to though. So with me and my agency, if I have a partner in something, I don't have to tell them who like the partner is. I'm talking to the client, I'm closing the client. And if it even needs to be brought up because I can't answer, the only time that it ever gets brought up is if I can't answer a question they have. That's the only time it gets brought up that I have partners. It's the only time it needs to be, right? So if they say, well, you know, do you guys do WordPress or, you know, like HTML, like how do you guys code your sites? And I didn't know the question at the time, then I would say like, I need, you know, let me ask my partner and get back to you. But for the most part, I never need to mention that. That said, like you can, if you were working with Agency Box, since the Agency Box team is trained by the Monopolize team, you can leverage Monopolize. Yeah.
Yep. And just to add and related to that, you know, Michael asked, how can we attain results to show we can help the client? So when you partner with my Agency Box or with an existing agency, you're going to gather all of their existing testimonials and case studies that they've already produced for similar clients, so that when you are talking with prospects, you can share their pre-existing results, proof, and case studies with that client as your own, because you guys are partners now. Does that make sense? Right? Which is, again, white labeling is like, it's like the greatest hack ever. It's really, really powerful in there. Okay, so I see more questions coming in about my Agency Box as well. And Blake, yes, screenshot proof is always, in my opinion, the best kind of proof. Again, at the summit, just so you guys remember, I asked everyone at the pre-day, there was 100 people. I said, how many of you, if you're on a website or sales page and you see testimonials on the page, how many of you believe those testimonials are real? And 0 hands went up out of 100 people, right? No one believes testimonials online. Then I said, all right, what if it's not written testimonials, but it's like ugly screenshots of a Facebook post or a text message or something? How many of you would believe a freaking screenshot? And about half said they would believe a screenshot, right? So the point is that people are incredibly skeptical. And yeah, when I show proof, screenshots are, in my opinion, the second best way to do it. The first best way is when you create that Loom video, like we talked about, and you log into the account live and they can see there's Stripe or there's the view count or whatever it might be, because that is undeniable proof. Not even, you know, a Loom video can be, I mean, I guess a Loom video could be freaking doctored in that way, but you really got to be a bad person to do that. A really sneaky person. Okay, so last question here before we wrap up. This one comes from Tucker, and he said, Brett, if your clients are loving the work you're providing, how should you ask for a higher retainer fee?
So I usually don't do that. If they're loving the work I'm providing, I'll usually either sell them on other services or I'll try to get them to refer me more business. That's the biggest. I go for referrals. I don't try and charge them more money. If you find yourself wanting to charge more, you probably just didn't charge enough at the start. Yep. If anything, the longer someone works with me, the better deals I give them. I like it, you know, like Jason, for example, and I have a contract together, and because of that contract, he gets a better deal, right? Because I'm honoring his commitment to work with me over a long period of time by giving him a better rate. So I'm just a big believer in like what goes around comes around. Treat your clients well. If you don't think you're charging enough, that means you didn't charge enough to start. I don't think that you should increase your rates as they're with you. But if they're really happy, sell them more stuff or get them to refer you people.
Yep.
More clients.
And just a note, Tucker, for this question, like once you have an agreement with a client that this is the fee and this is the deliverable, you do not want to go about trying to change that, because one, it's almost impossible for them to agree to that. That's going to be really, really hard to do. And even if you win that argument, they're going to resent you. It's just going to be there because you changed the deal on them, and now they feel like they can't trust you. The other part is, like, and I've said this before, I don't think anyone here in this group in Social Media Boss is here because you want to make a couple $1,000s a couple times. You're here because you want to create a business that pays you $3 or $5 or $10 or $15 or $20,000 a month or more consistently going forward for literally as long as you want to make money and have a business and a reputation in the industry, right? No one is here for like the quick hit. You're here to build a permanent new business, a permanent lifestyle that doesn't require a job or a boss, right? And if you're going to be here permanently, and this is where you're going to play, reputation matters because people talk. And Warren Buffett will tell you, you know, it takes like 20 or 30 years to build a reputation, and it can get knocked out in 5 minutes. And if you'd be known as the guy who goes around changing deals on people and stuff like that, and you're slippery, it's going to be very, very hard and challenging for you to do business with people going forward. But if you're known also on the flip as the person who is incredibly high integrity, trustworthy, reliable, over delivers, and so on, clients they'll just refer people to you, and that's typically what happens.
Yeah. There's one more thing too that's in line with that. Say that you're trying to leverage like a foot in the door method. So they're doing, Facebook ads with you, and you want to be able to prove that you are good at what you do and then charge them more, not necessarily for Facebook ads, but just charge them more. Then you could, for example, how many of you guys realize that Facebook owns Instagram, and running Instagram ads is you do that from Ad Manager on Facebook, and it's a very simple like button on, button off type thing. You can build them extra for Instagram ads, right? So start them on Facebook ads, and they like the results. Be like, hey, you can add Instagram for just a little bit more, and they don't realize that it's a really simple thing to do. So that's a way that you could do it if you want to build them more. And you could do the same thing with SEO. It's just basically like a value ladder where you're adding more depth to a service that you're already offering by just expanding what they're getting from that offer, and you can charge more that way. But I would never recommend charging more for the exact same thing that you're delivering.
Yep. And to go along with what Brett's saying, like we talked to guys in the last few weeks about how when you outbound to clients and you start signing them up, you lead with the cheese, right? And the cheese it's the start of that value ladder. It's the hot thing that they all want. They all already want. You don't have to convince them that they want it. They want it, right? Like when I go to clients right now for my agency, we're going to do a 30-day case study basically to see how many clients we can get them in the next 30 days, hands off for them, right? And it costs no money up front. There's no retainer fee, et cetera. Like I'm not saying let's do this for 3 years. I'm like, let's do a 30-day test together and just see how many clients we can get you in that period of time. Right. And that's irresistible to someone who wants more customers and more clients. Right. Knowing that once they get a great result in those first 30 days, it's going to be really easy for me to add, let's actually make this official and we'll go beyond 30 days. And then once it keeps going, like me and Brett have done with people, and we're going to keep doing, Instagram's great. Let's add Facebook Messenger and ManyChat, and we keep adding things to it to increase the ticket size each month and what the value you're delivering and the value you're getting in return. Okay, so last question here was Jamie. He said, will a social media boss last for 2 to 3 years, or will this last for 10 plus years? Jamie, this skill, I'm not a futurist, right? I'm not Ray Kurzweil. I don't know exactly, but this skill feels to me like something that will continue to work for at least the next 10 years because it doesn't matter where the attention goes or where the followers go. Every new social media platform is going to have messaging in some way or another. Conversations is where everything is going, like chats back and forth. And so if you have that skill, it won't matter where the tech goes or anything. People, even where AI goes, people want to talk to people more than they want to talk to robots. And if you have the skill of being able to go back and forth with someone over chat or email or text and get them buying stuff, that is an incredibly valuable skill that's going to last for a long time.
The overall concept of white labeling and closing deals that you're not fulfilling on is something that's been done for probably 100 years.
Yep.
I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Yep. At least, if not, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's been going on since like people could like talk to each other.
Since the beginning, always. Yeah. Yeah, and just so you guys are aware, like even the big marketing agencies of Madison Avenue and Vanner Media and things like that, they all do this. They all white label. It's, if you imagine Russian dolls, there's like a big Russian doll and you open it up and there's a smaller one and a smaller one and a smaller one. Like the big Russian doll, that's like the big Madison Avenue agency. They get a client to give them money and then they open it up and they white label the work to a smaller agency who takes some of the money and white labels it to a smaller agency, and it can keep going many, many times over. So this is something that's very incredibly common. It's worked for hundreds of years and it's not going anywhere.
Vayner Media actually works with me. That's a literal example.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very common thing. I think almost all companies do it to some extent.
Yeah. And I think it's smart to, right? I think it's foolish not to, because you're buying time, right? Like for instance,
it's also impossible to be great at everything. You're going to end up delivering a bad product if you're trying to do it all yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And to me, the way you have the best income to lifestyle kind of ratio is by the one skill you do focus on is the ability to type messages and get clients. And if that's the skill that you master, then you're going to have a never-ending inflow of clients that you can bring in, and you've a database or roster of white label partners, and then you just get clients and clients and clients, and you feed them to your partners, and then you just keep scaling your income that way. That's what this is, and it's good. So here's what I want to do for all of you who are asking questions about my agency box. Again, like. This is not like an upsell, and I'm not trying to force anyone to do this whatsoever. In fact, Brett and I's intention was to not even talk about my agency box here on this call today, but a lot of you have been asking about it. And so I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you an opportunity to like, yep, I want to get started with Brett right now. So if you do want to get more information about my agency box now, and you're thinking you want to partner with Brett on this, just type yes plus your email into the chat. And then I'm going to have Tiffany go through this later, and she'll grab type yes plus your email. I need your email also. I see a bunch of you typing yes right now. Please type in your email with it. And then this way we'll be able to reach out to you directly so you guys can get started if you want. So I'll just read out names so you guys know that I got you: Alex and Louise and Miguel and Daniel, Blake, Daddy Walsh, nice name, Robert, Fatos, Dan, Jacob, Nick, Sarai, what's up, Sean, Derek, Niku, Nikki, George, Julian, Leo, Kamal, Jacob, Phoenix, Michael, Hill, and Michael Duke, Shane, Kathy, Tucker, Prof. Hush, is that Professor Hush, Tushar, Mario, Rado, Drew, Mindogus, I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry, Niai, Lloyd, Rochelle, Cody, Brett, I think a lot of people want to work with you. Evan,
there's a couple people messaging me privately. I don't know if that you wouldn't be able to see that, right? So I need to message it to you privately or publicly, or
yeah, to me privately. Although if you guys message Brett privately, just don't do that. Just message me, because otherwise it's gonna get lost. I want to make sure I read all these. So
like Levi and Connor and anybody messaging me privately, just message Jason instead.
Thank you guys. Lorenzo, Tushar, Daniel, Radomir, Ahmed, Preston, Nicholas, Jose, Tiger, Peter, Mike, Hancho, Levi, Daniel, Bruno, Connolly, Lawrence, EJ, Victor, Alex, Chase, Shane, Blake, Alessandro, Connor Green, Tushar, and Howard. Awesome. Okay. And then someone said, does this include Monopolize also? I don't want to speak for Brett, but I'm sure if you're in with my agency box, then talking about white labeling with Monopolize is probably viable, Brett. Yeah.
It's one and the same.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So, all right. So John and Orly as well, got you guys there. Cool. So everyone who typed in their email, you're going to get a email from me and my team that will basically say, hey, here's some background information in my agency box. And I'll tell you guys, me and Brett, we just made it so it's going to be wholesale cost instead of what you see on the website and stuff. I think my agency box, Brett, it's $11.97 normally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be better at wholesale. All right. And then when you guys see the wholesale price, you'll also be like, damn, that's cool that Brett can get margins like that, because it means that I can get margins like that too. And everyone's happy because even at $11.97, it's an unbelievable deal as well. So there's a bunch of you typing more yes plus your email. Awesome. We will email you guys. So thank you for that. Brett, dude. Yeah.
So just one more thing, just so you guys understand, if you're confused, basically what you'll end up having is it'll literally be like a little back office with a menu of different services, and there's like dozens of different services, and you can just see the price. You just click on it, and then you'll get a bunch of different tools and examples that you can show clients for each individual service and case studies and stuff, and then you just go in and you like place an order. It's like a kind of like if you're ordering from like those McDonald's like virtual menus. It's like the same thing.
So everyone here, I think, has experienced ordering McDonald's, so you guys know what to do with that. Yeah, it's really cool because you sign up the client, you have them fill out the intake form, which Brett gives you. So he gives you the form, you give it to the client, they fill it out, and then you go back to the website and you just order on behalf of the client and you upload the intake form, and you're literally done. So it's good. It's really, really good. Okay, so dude, Brett, I want to thank you so much for spending the last hour and 20 minutes of your time. Just so you guys know, Brett was not paid to hang out here at all and deliver all this value. He is just an amazing human being and said, I'll love to spend the time and help you guys any way that I can. So Brett, thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it, dude. Is there any last words you want to share with the squad here?
No, I mean, thank you guys for your time. And I hope that I was able to bring some value to you guys. And the one thing I just want to say too is, and Jason's probably tired of me saying this, Jason's a really good person. Like you guys found like a good person. He's one of my favorite people on this planet. And one of the few clients that I regularly spend time with just as a friend. So thanks for having me, man.
Dude, love you. One of my favorite people as well. And
you too, brother.
A lot of great things in the future. All right, guys. So everyone else, have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you guys next week. Until then, take care. God bless. And talk to you soon.